Go ahead,
counseling
Robbie.
necessary for the recovery of substance use disorders?
Right.
And so far we have 60% said yes and 40% said no.
Oh, it's close.
60-40.
Yeah.
It's close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
60-40.
Yeah.
All right, so more people are saying that it is necessary.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right on.
Did you answer the poll, Robbie?
I did. I said no just because
Ooh.
I've seen a lot of people get sober just with 12-step programs.
Okay.
And I mean, there might be some people that would consider that like a form of group therapy. But
Okay.
I think one-on-one with a counselor, I mean, it's definitely been beneficial for me.
Right.
But I don't know if everybody can fit into the same shoes.
So
When you're coming out of an active addiction, people don't realize that there's so much lying that's involved with that, and just kind of understanding how you were thinking and how those thoughts could possibly take you back to that active cycle of addiction. And I mean, a lot of times in active addiction, people try to play their own therapist and are justifying all their behaviors and actions, when in reality, when you start saying these things out loud to someone else, it makes a lot more sense. And you're like, wow, did I really think like this? Like, did I think this was going to be a good idea?
Right.
And they can point that out for you, and that's what they're professionally trained in. So
Part of me getting clean and sober was being a lot more accepting of a lot of things, including
Right.
things that I may not want to agree with or have to agree with.
yeah.
But accepting everybody's path. I mean, that's
Right.
kind of the deal. To me, that's what I call sobriety.
Well, isn't there a difference though between recovery and sobriety or something
Yeah,
like that?
I think
or-
so.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot to be said. It's a lot harder to measure. I think there's a lot to be said of people that are more open to other people and other people's
Right.
ways of doing things. And I think that as soon as someone becomes closed-minded and concrete in their thinking that there's only one way to do something,
Yep.
I think psychologically, I don't think you're sober anymore. I think
Right.
psychologically now you're being rigid, and that's not what we got clean and sober to be.
Yeah.
We didn't get clean and sober to be rigid.
Yeah, I
We-
do think it's dangerous when you have that one set mentality that
Right.
only this program is going to work.
Right.
When people try to say I don't want to do counseling, and you know, because I've heard quite a few of those in my
Right.
life.
Right. Yeah. Me too.
Friends, acquaintances, and stuff are like, I'm never going to one of them stupid counselors, and I don't need any of that. You know, that kind of stuff.
Stigma.
You know, that stuff doesn't work.
Mhm.
And how can some stranger help me with my problems? You know,
Right.
I've heard all of those.
Right.
However, those same people will go to friends and family, and you know, and they'll, when something happens, they'll be one of the first ones that picks up the phone and calls their buddy. Yo, you believe this crap that my wife did last night?
Right,
You know,
right,
and then the buddy's like, oh well, you know, hey man, my wife did the same thing, and that's counseling, whether you want to call it that or not. That's what that is.
Right.
You know, the difference though is instead of going to your buddy who's got their own problems and who has their own perspective and isn't trained to separate those two, you know, you're going to a professional.
Right.
Name one person who couldn't go into like a bar or something like that and start complaining about your wife, and you wouldn't have a million people
Yep.
joining in.
Yep.
Right? They would all join in and complaining. Is that beneficial? No. Is anybody in there who's the one guy that's gonna step in and say, well, you know what, man, you know, your wife's got it hard. You know,
Right.
your wife. No, they're not going to do that. It's just confirmation bias. They're all just going to confirm,
Right.
and then you're going to walk out not with a new perspective. You're going to walk out with, yeah, man, I knew she was wrong.
Right.
You're going to walk in the door, and be like, hey, I talked to all my friends, and they said, like,
Yeah.
hold up, you're not in a relationship with your friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Did any of them give you a different perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where the danger lies when you, especially when it comes to drug and alcohol, because as we said before, it hijacks your brain.
Right.
So if your brain is already hijacked, you can't trust any of your feelings or thoughts at the moment.
Right.
And which means you can't trust their feelings or thoughts.
Right.
And then you're all basically just kind of confirming one another's biases. Where's the professional come in and says, hold up, I know it feels that way at the moment, but here's a different perspective that might kind of shed some light on that.
Right.
And so I think that's why, yes, it's absolutely necessary.
And it's a lot easier to do that when you don't have a emotional investment in the person.
Absolutely.
And you're not like a friend or a family member or a relative or even
Yes.
that person in the bar that wants to kind of egg you on. You're
Yeah.
a third party outside person who has no investment in this person. So it's going to be easier to be objective and do your job as a professional.
Everybody seeks counsel, you know,
Yeah.
some way, and I like the way you guys are putting it about there's a difference between professional counseling and just seeking counsel from a friend or whatever. Now, you may call it support, you may call it feedback, you may call it advice, you may call it anything, or you may just think you're just sharing. But you're getting some sort of visual cue, you're getting some sort of cue from whoever you're talking to that's typically validating whatever you want, and that's
Yeah.
why they're your friends. You know, typically people don't rock the boat around you. It's not just movie stars that are hanging around a bunch of people that are yes men. A lot of people hang
Yeah.
around a lot of yes men. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
You just don't think so. And so when you do that, you tend to reach out to them, like you said, Trinity, and you get that outside counsel and get through it. But there is this stigma attached to paying for it. There is this stigma attached to going to somebody who doesn't know your life as a whole and giving you that. So you tend to believe that if you don't know my life as a whole, then you can't help me. Like I remember when I first became a counselor and I came from the room. So there's something to be said about, I give back freely what was given to me freely, right? So to charge for it, I thought was very difficult for a lot of counselors like me initially. Even though I didn't mind charging people for other services that I've done in my life or other types of businesses, for some reason, the business of counseling, you want to give it away.
Yeah.
And you devalue it.
I went through the same thing when I was doing the Buddhist classes. I felt weird charging.
Exactly. And so I think that, my accountants have never felt odd asking for money. Yeah. My attorneys have definitely never felt odd asking for money. Other professions are much better at putting a value on their work and their effort, but people tend to not want to put that same effort or value on a counselor or on a therapist. You're not equipped to deal with some of the issues that you're dealing with, and I think it's real important for you to accept that and be okay with that. I mean, there's a lot of... Look, I'm a certified addictions professional. I've been in private practice for over 25 years. I've done a lot of forms of counseling, but it doesn't mean that when I'm dealing with somebody that has a specific issue that I feel... All right, well, that's not really my specialty, even though I'm a counselor. So I'm going to bring in another professional as well to deal with that. And like when you mentioned different types of trauma therapies, there's a lot of different types of therapies that we use for trauma.
Right.
And so if I wanted to utilize one of those, and I'm not trained in that, why wouldn't I call like an Aaron Moore from Solace Counseling and bring him in, and say, because I've done that a lot with Aaron, where I'll say, all right, I'm going to do this, Aaron, but I'm going to send them to you to kind of deal with this. Crisis manage. I want to be that first phone call. If you want to call somebody that you're suffering right now, I want to be that first phone call, and I want to start you off. Now, from there, I'm gonna bring in the Aarons, I'm gonna bring in the Denny's, I'm gonna bring in those people, and I'm gonna use them to get further and deeper into your issues, because we know there's deeper rooted issues. I want to be that. Now, it doesn't discount 12-step meetings. It doesn't discount the rooms. It uses the rooms.
Well, it's another piece of the puzzle.
But yeah, exactly. It's another piece. It's not the piece. Paraprofessionals are not professionals. So somebody who's not your financial advisor shouldn't be giving you financial advice. Somebody who's not your legal counsel should not be giving you legal advice. Somebody who's not your marital therapist shouldn't be giving you marital advice. Somebody who's not your drug and alcohol counselor should not be giving you drug and alcohol advice. People that are there for you as friends give you friendly help. They should be listeners more than advice givers. People who are there maybe as a sponsor should be guiding you through the 12-step program, not necessarily being your financial advisor, your therapist, and all that other stuff.
Stay in your lane, man.
You got to stay in your lane. I was feeling bad, so I needed to go to more meetings. And I started going to more meetings. I felt better. Maybe it's because you got out. Maybe you were isolating, but maybe that wasn't your disease. Maybe that was your mental health illness. Yeah. Maybe that was depression. Maybe the reason you weren't going out was depression. Maybe your trigger is depression. Maybe your trigger is anxiety, and it's not just disease of addiction. And I think that's the problem. We oversimplify addiction.
Yeah.
There's so many of us that oversimplify what addiction is. And it may be simple in the future. We might find that out. But it is a much more medical than we like to admit. There is much more medical complication. If you have low dopamine, you have low dopamine. If you have low serotonin, you have low serotonin. If your system, if your dopamine reward system is not working properly, it's just not working properly. You know what I mean? And what my sponsor used to give me when I used to go sit at the table, constantly sugar. Right? Sugar, right? So there was all these smokers, everybody drinking coffee and then giving you candy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the more I learned about addiction, the more I realized, well, this right here is not helping my addiction part. So maybe behaviorally I'm doing better. Maybe I'm not using cocaine.
Right.
But I'm not really treating the addiction part. That's why I'm still having ups and downs and stuff like that, because I'm still going up and crashing. I'm still going up and crashing with caffeine and stuff like that. Yeah. So maybe I need to regulate some of that. I don't think that we have enough qualified physicians that know what the hell they're doing, even though I agree with the physicians that do it. Say everybody should see a medical professional and it's a medical disease, so you should treat it medically. I agree with you. The problem is I don't think you or the people around you necessarily are qualified enough.
Yeah.
I think many of you are still too biased. Many of you don't respect the art of the one-to-one conversation. Many of you don't respect the art of a group. You don't understand the universality effect of a group conscious. I don't think many of you understand what a 12-step room really is, other than what you've seen on some movie or what you've read in a pamphlet or heard in a class. I don't think you as medical professionals are qualified enough yet to handle this disease. So until they're ready for us, until they raise up their level of expertise to meet the needs of this disease, we're going to continue debating this, and we're going to continue having to make sure we can somehow get to the right person that can say, you know what, I know somebody who can help you with that. It's time to go.
Yeah, it is time to go.
All
But
right.
we can't ignore any of those either.
All right, so adios amigos. It's time for a taco. Goodbye.
And that was without even a single drop of rum.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
He really grows on you, doesn't he?